Have you ever found yourself completely drawn into a painting? You know, the kind of scene where everyone's dressed to the nines, enjoying decadent food and drink, laughter filling the air, and you think, wow, I'd give anything to just jump in and live there for a moment. The colours are rich and warm, the light is perfect, and the whole scene just feels like the ultimate escape. Well, friends, this is not one of those paintings. Today, we're looking at a piece called The Roses of Heliogabalus by Sir Lawrence Alma-Tadema, a British-Dutch artist who created this masterpiece back in 1888. The title might make it sound romantic, and at first glance you might think, oh, a rose shower. How lovely. But don't be fooled by the flower petals and fancy togas. This painting tells a much darker story. So, buckle up, because things are about to get real. The painting captures a banquet hosted by none other than Roman Emperor Heliogabalus, also known as Elagabalus. Now, this guy didn't throw your average Roman dinner party. This wasn't just a bring a dish to pass and enjoy the wine affair. Oh no, Heliogabalus was known for taking things to the next level and then some. Picture an emperor with no chill, a teenager with absolute power and zero impulse control. Think of him as the OG influencer, but with way more dangerous hobbies. Now let's talk about the scene itself. We're looking at an opulent banquet room, filled with wealthy Roman nobles draped in fine fabrics and jewels. Some are reclining in the foreground, some are seated at the table in the background, and above them, a false ceiling loaded with roses. Lots and lots of roses. Actually, scratch that. Too many roses. We see Heliogabalus lounging, left of centre, with a look of satisfaction that might remind you of someone who just nailed their 5th Instagram post of the day. But if you look closely at the guests' faces, you'll notice something's a bit off. What initially seems like surprise and delight turns into sheer horror. Some of them are staring in shock. Others are frantically trying to claw their way out. Why? Because Heliogabalus isn't showering them with rose petals. He's actually smothering them. Yup, you heard that right. He's dumping so many rose petals on his guests that they're quite literally suffocating under the weight. And you thought your worst party story was bad, huh? Now you might think, surely this has to be a mistake. Maybe someone miscalculated the petal count? But no, Heliogabalus is totally pleased with his little party trick. He's reclining there like he's about to start reading a nice cozy novel, with that look of smug satisfaction that says, I've really outdone myself this time. Psychopathic? Maybe just a smidge. But hey, we're talking about a guy who once made lions roam around a banquet hall just to see how people would react. So for him, this was probably just another Tuesday. As the roses pour down, some guests are reaching out to their neighbours with desperation, while others seem to be coming to terms with their fate. And then there's Heliogabalus's mom and grandma, casually hanging out to his right. You know, the family that overthrew the previous emperor and put this guy on the throne. Thanks, Mom. Talk about questionable parenting choices. If you follow the line of sight of the guests who are watching from the table, you'll notice they're staring at the people suffocating beneath the roses, some with pleading looks as if to say, a little help over here, please? This isn't the light, airy, floral paradise you might have expected. Instead, it's more of a slow-motion horror show, with a disturbingly cheerful Heliogabalus pulling the strings. You might wonder, was Heliogabalus some kind of evil genius? Or was he just completely off his rocker? Well, the answer depends on who you ask. Historical accounts describe him as the very definition of extra. Imagine all the crazy party tricks and extravagant displays you can think of. Heliogabalus did them first and took them to the extreme. And let's remember this kid became emperor at 14, which, if you ask me, is a solid recipe for disaster. I mean, most 14-year-olds struggle to decide what to wear to school, let alone how to rule an empire. History has all kinds of wild stories about Heliogabalus. Take, for example, the time he supposedly served only food of a single colour to his guests. One night, everything on the table was orange. Another night, everything was green. Or the time he invited only one-eyed guests to dinner, or a whole table of guests who were overweight just to see if they'd all fit. And if you thought he was done, oh no. Once his guests were sufficiently intoxicated, he'd casually release tame lions into the dining room. Some people supposedly died from shock when they woke up to find a lion casually hanging out next to their half-eaten dinner. What a host, right? One story that particularly sticks out is how Heliogabalus served wax or wooden replicas of food to everyone who wasn't an elite guest. Imagine being halfway through what you thought was a delicious dinner, only to realize you'd been gnawing on a block of wood. Or how he supposedly invented the world's first whoopee cushion for dinner parties. A true visionary. And here's where things get really wild. Not only was Heliogabalus extravagant, but he also made waves for openly defying gender norms. It's rumoured that he wanted to be addressed as a woman at times, and he's even cited by some historians as possibly the first transgender emperor. There are accounts of him requesting surgical procedures to transition, which, needless to say, would have been groundbreaking in ancient Rome. In an empire known for its strict social structures, Heliogabalus's choices were seen as outright scandalous. His love for extravagance was legendary. Rumour has it that he never wore the same pair of shoes twice. A flex, sure, but can you imagine trying to organise that closet? And as if his short 4-year reign didn't have enough drama, he went through 4 wives, one of whom was a Vestal virgin, a move that was a major no-no in ancient Rome. After all these stunts, it's no wonder Heliogabalus's grandmother eventually decided she'd had enough. She arranged for his assassination, and he was ultimately killed in, of all places, a latrine, a ye old Roman toilet. You can imagine how the gossip spread after that one. Now, looking back, was Heliogabalus truly the cruel monster history has made him out to be? Some people think the stories of his wild antics were exaggerated as part of a smear campaign by his successor, his own cousin, who probably needed a pretty good excuse for taking over. But let's be real. Some of these stories are just too wild to completely dismiss. The man was a legend of extremes, even if some of those tales are a bit embellished. So, if there's a lesson to be learned here, it's probably this. Be careful who you put on the throne, especially if they're a teenager with a flair for drama. And maybe, just maybe, be a little cautious when someone tells you they're planning a surprise at a dinner party. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed diving into one of history's weirdest banquets with me. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for more art, history, and wild stories from the past. See you in the next one.